Well, hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we celebrate the birthday of the late, great Bon Scott. Now, Bon Scott was one of the greatest frontmen in the history of rock and roll music, and AC/DC are arguably the quintessential modern rock and roll band. It's perhaps no coincidence that Bon was actually born on the day that Rock Around the Clock entered the charts, the great Bill Haley and the Comets tune from 1955. And there's a weird connectivity between that kind of rock and roll and the rock and roll that AC/DC started putting out in the 70s, and that it's music that's devoid of any pretense. It's music that's devoid of anything conceptual. And of course, we talk about conceptual music a lot. But having music without a concept is perhaps, in hindsight, a concept in and of itself. In other words, let's just play rock and roll for the sake of rock and roll. Because if that's not good enough on its own, then what's the point? If art for art's sake is not good enough on its own, then what's really the purpose of art? Is art merely a vehicle to communicate something? It can be, but when you really strip it back, art should be able to exist as an end in and of itself. And that's what AC/DC really proved. They had everything that you need to make great rock music and nothing more. You had amazing riffs, the best in the business. You had the themes that were quintessentially rock and roll, songs about blowing stuff up, songs about fire, songs about hell, songs about driving down the road, songs about drinking, songs about women. That's pretty much it. And those various themes, you could spin them on the Wheel of Fortune style wheel and come up with an AC/DC song. And I say that in the best possible way because they didn't mess around, because they knew that there was a huge audience out there who wanted to have fun. And AC/DC music was really all about fun. And Bon Scott embodied that. He certainly embodied it on stage. He was sort of the everyman entertainer. He was the guy who looked and communicated the way that the guy at a bar or a pub would. Just, the average guy sitting there wanting to have a good time. And when he took that microphone, took the shirt off, covered in sweat, screaming out the songs, he was really saying, hey guys, come join with me, sing along, have a great fucking time. That was AC/DC in a nutshell. And of course, the Scott brothers, Bon and Angus, really, really hammered that message home. The whole band they really had it. And it's perhaps no coincidence why Eddie Van Halen, who famously didn't have a very large music collection, was a huge fan of AC/DC because they were rock and roll in its purest form. And Eddie was someone who took that formula, but took a virtuosic approach to it, where AC/DC took a really down home approach, if you will, which isn't to take away from the musicianship in the band. They were really, really good at what they did. You could argue that no one was better. Now, Bon Scott in his lifetime was already well on his way to becoming one of the legendary frontmen ever, because, as I said, he had that X factor. He had what you needed to have. And tragically, he died very young, just when AC/DC were going to go from big to huge. Obviously, they did go from big to huge with the help of Brian Johnson, who ended up replacing Bon Scott and he helped keep the tradition alive. But to the true hardcore AC/DC fans, Bon was and always will be the AC/DC singer, the embodiment of the AC/DC lifestyle, which was just, be yourself, have a good time, and keep the bullshit as far away as possible. And it's a great philosophy. It's in the music, and the music is just really fun to listen to. And Bon has been, even after his death, such a huge inspiration to so many frontmen out there. No one could really ever do it like him because you can't learn how to be authentic. You can't learn how to be yourself. Either you are or you're not. And Bon Scott was one of those who was. was. He simply was simply the best. So happy birthday to the late Bon Scott. We salute you. And the music is definitely living on because so long as anyone out there wants to rock, start at the beginning of the alphabet, that's AC/DC. And most people don't really even need to go on from there because they really did it all. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Take care.